Let's go out to my hometown, H-Town, go Stros, and talk to the mighty Joe. What's up, Joe?
Hi, Dr. John.
What up?
It's a pleasure to speak with you.
It's a pleasure to speak with you, man. Hey, are our boys going to pull it out or what?
Oh, I believe so. I think they're going to make one last trade here at the end, and I think we're going to pull it over the top.
Dude, that's my Joe. I'm in, man. I'm in. All right, so what's up?
Yeah, man. I've listened to countless hours of your show, and man, you've helped me a ton. And so I just want to say thank you for that. First off,
Appreciate
so my
that,
question is, you've talked about emotional infidelity, and you talked about emotional abuse, and I'm wanting to understand if my wife is emotionally has emotional infidelity, and if she's abusive or neglectful, or if I'm just being too sensitive and needy, because that's basically what she's told me.
Whew. There's a lot of layers here already, man. So let me know what's going on.
Yeah. So the backstory, I met my wife through actually her cousin. We worked together. She introduced me to my wife now, and everything was great in the beginning. Thought she was a wonderful person. She's a wonderful person, and I thought she had a wonderful heart. She's a teacher, just like your wife is, and she really, really loved kids, and that was one of her big things, is she really, really wanted to have kids. So we got married, and we immediately tried to have kids because I knew how important that was to her, and I wanted to have kids too. And I never, thought I was going to be ready, and I don't think you ever are ready. You just had to kind of jump into it. So we had kids right away. I mean, when we tried to have kids, it happened very, very quickly. But quickly after we had kids, our sex life just fell apart. I confided in her, that I needed the intimacy, and that I felt like she was really distant, and she basically just told me, I'm too tired. I don't have time for it. Or there's always an excuse. We went to counseling for a bit, and during the counseling sessions, it came up, and then for whatever reason, she basically just told the counselor that she didn't want to continue anymore. So it stopped. It's gone from...
So wait, hold on. So when you're talking about what are the challenges in your relationship, and you brought up the lack of sexual intimacy, y'all aren't sleeping together. You're not. Usually these conversations are not just about doing it. They're also about, like, you don't hold my hand. You leave the room when I walk in. Like, there's not that gentle touch on my shoulder. Like, so there's a whole picture here. When you brought that up,
right,
she just said, "This conversation's over. I'm out."
I mean, it wasn't that quickly, but it was very relatively quickly. I mean, it was brought up towards the end of one session, and then the beginning of another session, she said she just didn't want to continue anymore. And another backstory with her, what she's told me about her past is she's been married, was married previously, and she's confided to me that her ex-husband was physically abusive. It was like a one-time occurrence, but he was. And I've always thought, okay, well, that has something to do with it. And I think the counselor was trying to see if there was some back history there. So that might be another reason why she tried to shut it down. But the thing about this, what she told me though about her past, it's been a little confusing over the years, is, I was very sympathetic of what she told me, and, it broke my heart. But I've come to find out over the years that she's never told anybody about it. Nobody, only me. And she didn't want anybody else to know about it. So I hate this. I don't want to say that I don't believe her, but initially, I believed her 100%. And then as time has gone on, I'm starting to question whether or not the story was 100% true or not.
Sure.
That makes sense?
Yeah. Tell me about emotional infidelity.
I mean, she's very passive aggressive. Dismisses my feelings. I've tried multiple different avenues to try to get through to her on how I feel. I've done the direct approach where I sit her down and talk to her. I've written her letters. I've written her poems. And it was almost kind of like, well, this is ridiculous. Like she has told me directly that I'm needy and too sensitive. Is basically what she's told me. And she's very dismissive also of things that are important to me.
Yeah.
Like I'll give you an example. It's something small, but it came up the other day. I'm really big on communication, and we obviously have a horrible horrible communication in our marriage. And one of the things that I've asked her to do is, look, if she's going to have any friends or family come over, just let me know so I know in advance they're coming. And she hardly ever does it. And the other day, someone just popped up, and I had no idea they were coming. And I asked her, I said, why didn't you tell me they were coming? She's like, I don't need to tell you that.
So, just for technicality, emotional infidelity, the way I would classify that is somebody that has feelings for somebody else. They haven't slept with them. They're not holding hands. They're not going on dates. But somebody who has chosen to confide in somebody that's not their person they're married to. Super common, sneaks up on you. And it can definitely be worked through, but it definitely is a thing, right? That doesn't sound like what's going on here. What sounds like what's going on here, and I always want to enter into these spaces very carefully, okay? Because I just want to tell for the people listening, one of the things you never, ever want to do when somebody confides in you like you're doing right now, what you're saying, Joe, is hard to say, right? You're saying things out loud. You're being pretty vulnerable with me, and I'm really grateful for it. That's hard for a dude to say, hey, man, I'm like pouring myself out to her, and she just keeps shutting me down. It's my wife. It's my mother of my kids, right? That's hard to say out loud, right? And my guess is you don't tell a whole bunch of people that. But one of the cardinal rules when somebody opens up to you is to never badmouth their spouse, because they might get back together, and then they're going to remember what you said. When you're like, yeah, she sucks. Then y'all reconcile. You're always going to know, like, that dude said my wife sucked. You know what I mean? So I always want to tread carefully here, but I also want to be really honest, and we have a contracted time to talk. So can I just be direct, straight ahead? Is that cool?
Sure.
Yeah, you're dealing with somebody. I'm not going to diagnose her over the phone, obviously, but you're dealing with somebody who doesn't give a crap about you. And I need you to hear me say this directly. You're not crazy. In fact, given what you've told me, now I know there's always two sides to every story, right? And I've had these conversations where I talk to a dude like this, and then I talk to her, and she's like, oh, yeah, let me fill you in. And it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Right.
But I don't get that sense from you, man. It sounds like a guy who loves his wife and is doing everything he can to connect with her, from the direct approach, the indirect approach, the I'm going to help around the house approach, to the, hey, you want to dream together approach, to here's some poetry approach. Sounds like you're doing everything you can, man. And you're consuming stuff like this show. You're trying to figure out, what is it about me? And I want you to hear me say, I don't think it's you, man. I don't think it's you. And let me tell you why that's hard to say. Because now you're left with this terrifying, well, now what? Right? Because doesn't sound like there's something you can just go fix. I'm going to say something that's going to sound really callous. And I'm saying this as somebody who's been through my own hell and back, okay? And also has worked with a whole bunch of people. Trauma is very, very real. I wrote a whole book about it. And it cascades through a person's entire life and through their family tree if they don't deal with it. And it's not an excuse to shut your life down. And so we do not choose the trauma that happens to us. We don't choose the abuse, the marginalization. We don't choose being born in the wrong neighborhood, the wrong color, all those things. We don't choose that stuff. We do choose what comes next. And so it sounds like somewhere along the way, either hell visited your wife, either before she was your wife, when she was a little kid, whatever. Or, like you said, now I'm starting to even doubt if that's even true. Here's the deal. It honestly doesn't matter. What matters is she going to look at the person she committed her life to and say, I hear you. I may not be able to sleep with you 3 times a week right now. I get that. But I also understand that I can't go through my whole life not touching my husband. I'm going to go do the work I need to do to be well. I am going to go see a counselor. I'm going to go sit with a mentor. I'm going to go figure out, why does my body pull away when the man I love leans in? The father of my kids leans in. Right? And so that's her work to do, and you can't do it. And it sounds like what you're saying, man, she doesn't have any interest at all in doing it.
No, it doesn't. I mean, everything that's important to me, just she shuts down. I mean, I go to church every Sunday with my boys and my dad. I've asked her on multiple occasions, to come, that I thought was very important, and she just gives me excuses why she doesn't want to go. And I'll give you a great example, of one of the reasons why I wrote in. So recently, I had a car accident that someone cut me off and it totaled my truck, and I wasn't hurt, to where I had to go to the hospital, but I was pretty shaken up and I had pretty bad whiplash. And when I, called her about the accident, she, instead of coming to the accident, she said, "Do I need to come?" And so, of course, I was just like, "No, you're fine. Just stay." And then when she got home that evening, I told her, I said, "Hey, I could really use some intimacy. My life kind of flashed before my eyes, and I really could use you to help me rub my shoulders and help me to feel a little better." And her exact words were, "I'm not doing that because I might make your condition worse." So that's what kind of like set me over the top to write in.
Can I be a jerk for a second?
Sure.
I just want to paint you an opposite picture here. My wife and I, by 1,000 miles, are not perfect. Okay, like I don't want anyone to, at all to think that.
Right.
Last year when I was doing my Wim Hof breathing exercises in my car, doing 85 miles an hour down the highway, and I passed out and I totaled my car. I was okay. I actually drove the car. It went, I drove it in and parked it at the office and had it towed out of here. But I got here and I called my wife and I said, "Hey, I totaled the car. I'm okay. Just wanted to let you know I'm safe. If somebody saw me on the side of the road or whatever, I want you to know I'm okay." And it was about 35 or 45 minutes later, and we live 30 minutes from here. My wife showed up here.
Right.
And she had tears in her eyes, and she said, "I just need to see you." And she came and gave me a hug, but I need you to know that's the other side. I tell you all that to tell you it's not a fantasy. You're not a needy, whiny guy. You're not crazy. But I also want to tell you this. You have to get out of her head and stop playing the "what if I just do this, what if I just do this" game.
Right.
You have to shift into what I'm going to call a whole other mode. And it's terrifying, dude. You have to ask yourself, this is who she is, and this is who she is choosing to be when it comes to spiritual matters, when it comes to sexuality, when it comes to connectivity. And if it hasn't already, it's going to show up with parenting decisions and choices.
Right.
So let me say this as clearly as I can. She does not care about you. And I hate saying that. But you feel that.
Yes, I feel it. So
you have to ask yourself, what am I going to do next? And I can't give you that answer. That might be, all right, cool. This is the life I chose. This is the person I chose. I'm going to settle in here. This might be you sitting down with a counselor and begin saying, what does life look like not with her? This might look like sitting down with her and saying, okay, I've reached the line here. And I want to say this. When it comes to infidelity, you may have heard me say this, and so I'll make sure I clarify myself here. We talk about infidelity a lot as like, did you have sex with somebody? Did you text somebody? Did you kiss somebody? I think infidelity is an infinitely bigger picture, right? It's about withholding. It's about denial. It's about, I'm going to be about my life over your life. I'm going to be about my wants and my needs, and I don't care about the covenant I made with you that we're going to be about doing life together. And so I take a much wider angle when it comes to infidelity, because a lot of people are just flat out terrible marriage partners. They're selfish, they're narcissistic, they're jerks, they're quasi, not physically, but they're quasi abusive. They're just awful. But then they say, I didn't sleep with anybody. Yeah, dude, but you violated the covenant of this marriage. Because when you get married, you say, you before me. And she says, you before me. And you spend the rest of your life in service to one another. And y'all are in service to building something completely new, man. And here's the thing. I hate this for you, dude. And if you were here, I'd give you a hug, man. Because I know what I'm telling you is like a sack of bricks on your shoulder because you felt it and you felt it and you felt it. But you got to ask yourself, what do I do next? What do I do next? And I'm going to recommend you get with somebody, probably a professional or a minister in your community, or it sounds like your old man and you are pretty close. I would sit down with somebody and get some reflection. And you can go into a lot more detail with this person. I guess my final thing, man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that your wife is choosing to kick dirt in your face, choosing to not connect, choosing to leave you out in the cold. I'm so sorry, man. And if your wife has a rebuttal to this, if she watches this and she's like, oh, you need to know the other half, I'd love for her to call in, man. I'd love for the other side of the story, but this is the one I got. And quite honestly, it breaks my heart, but this is not an uncommon story where somebody gets married, has kids, and they're done with him. Now I can have my life, the one that I wanted, with what I wanted. I'm through with this, and I hate that for everybody. I hate that for the kids. I hate that for both the husband and the wife. I hate it for everybody. I hate it for everybody. Thanks for the call, my brother. I wish I had some better news or some like, oh yeah, just try this. Sounds like you've gone to the ends of the earth, man. And you're going to have to live in that season of what do I do now? And when you make that decision of what I'm going to do now, you got to be at peace with it. You got to be at peace with it. Because living in that gray space, man, will kill you. Sit with somebody else who you trust, who can reflect back with you. Y'all make a path for moving forward, man. Call anytime I can help. Hang on the line. I'm going to send you a copy of Own Your Past, Change Your Future, man. Just free of charge. It's a book for you to read. It's about what to do when everything falls apart and how to pick up the pieces and take a new path.